Join us as we unravel our deep-rooted relationship with money, from earliest memories to eureka moments and building wealth. Birth to Net Worth, with me, Tristan Trenberth. Welcome to another edition of Birth to Net Worth, where we talk about our genesis, our life, and our evolutionary relationship with money, finances, and financial literacy. Today, we have a wonderful guest who I met in the last couple of years. Again, a lot of these guests coming through real estate, but just great people to level up in life with and align with and find similarities and obviously contrasts as well. I'm going to invite into the room Bethany LaFlam. Bethany, welcome to Birth to Net Worth. Thank you for spending time with me.
Thank you. I so appreciate you having me.
So I met Bethany through a webinar or a webcast probably about a year and a half ago now, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I've got some bubbles of the similar type that we had back then. So Bethany's an attorney, wonderful human being, an investor in real estate, now a hotel owner as of Monday. And I would love you to share with us some of your experiences around money. So, where do you first remember money being mentioned in life, or a memory around money? Is there something that sticks out from your childhood?
I'm trying to think as early back as I could. I grew up really poor. We did not have money. And so there wasn't, it wasn't what I would consider a healthy relationship with money, because my thought was simply that there just isn't enough. And that's just not a thing that I get to have.
Yeah.
So growing up, it was, we can't afford that. We can't have that because we can't afford it. And beyond even just, we can't afford it, is there was sort of just this ugliness around people who had money, right? And you did that post, and my answer to your post was that people who have money are somehow bad.
Yeah. It's so common. So, with parents and family, what was obviously you just described kind of some of the foundation which caused you to build your understanding and relationship with money from that point. What were your observations of other people, other kids in your community you had a lens on at that point? You had a colored lens that was kind of causing you to see other people in a certain way. Did you see generosity out there in the world, in contrast to scarcity, maybe? Is there something you remember around there?
I did see generosity. And in looking back, as a small child, I don't think I fully grasped what I was seeing that I can put words to now. But when I was younger, and even though we couldn't afford things, people who lived very similarly to us could, right? Or just did, right? And what I didn't recognize then that I recognize now is it may have been the same amount of money. I don't know. I have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
But it's a mindset. Always, it's a mindset, and it's a relationship to money, which always boils down to mindset, right? And the thing that I always say is anyone can create conscious wealth. You'll hear me say this over and over. Anyone can create conscious wealth, and it really comes down to education, access to opportunities, and mindset. And if you have the right mindset, then you'll figure out that your access to education and your access to opportunities are fine. They're fine. Is it the same as everyone else's? No. And I think that's where people get hung up, is just because I didn't have the same access to money, or the same access to education, or the same access to opportunities that other people or kids might have had, doesn't mean that I couldn't start to create wealth. I just didn't know it was for me.
Yeah. Corey was talking about the 4 pillars, and he's got physical, mental, emotional, and financial health. And it's very often that people go after the money, and the other 3 just fall apart. They're not there, and they never will be there until you rectify the love of yourself, and not in a egotistical way, but just a self-care approach, which takes care of your mind and your body and your emotional state. And then the money just generally follows when people are in alignment with themselves and the world around them. And that's where the abundance lies. I mean, you and I we've had different teachers, different experiences in life, but I love the alignment that we found, several months ago when we were talking about different projects and how we think about things.
Yeah, I love it too, and it took a lot of work. So that self-care you talked about, right?
Yeah.
To love myself. You have to get there to allow yourself to have something that you didn't grow up thinking you could have,
Yeah.
right? So there had to be a huge shift and a lot of work that went into me even thinking, one, that people who have money aren't bad. Wanting to have money isn't a bad thing, a shameful thing to want to have money or
Yeah.
crass, whatever word people want to say, right?
Yeah.
And not only is it not a bad thing, but I personally, I get to, I just get to, you know. And
Yeah.
so it took a lot of work on myself to get to that. And the truth is that until you do that, even if you do figure out a way to find money, if that's the only thing you're after, if you don't have that mindset shift to allow yourself to have it, you won't keep it. I know plenty of people
Yeah.
who are amazing at making money,
Yeah.
terrible at keeping it.
Yeah. It's what Uncle Bob says, Robert Kiyosaki. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
That's right. That's
And
right.
did that guy play any part in your evolution with money? I mean, so many did.
Yeah, he did. And it's interesting because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when it came out, what, 20 something, 23 years ago, maybe something like that around there. I was just fresh out of law school or just graduating from law school. And I read it and I thought, "Oh my God, this is amazing." But something still hadn't clicked in my mindset.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was still like, as soon as I establish myself in my career, then I'll do these things in this book. It's great. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. I grew up with Poor Dad,
Yeah.
and Poor Dad is still in your brain, right? You've got to, so it's one thing to read it. That's the education piece. But if you don't have the
Yeah.
mindset to accept it, you can read all you want and it won't stick
Yeah.
if you don't have the mindset,
Yeah.
and I went to law school for that very reason. I love being a lawyer. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't know that being an entrepreneur was a thing that I
Mm.
could have or do.
Yeah.
I was told, "Hey, you're a really smart girl. To get out of here, you either go to law school or you go to medical school."
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I don't know when Rich Dad was published. I don't think it was published when I was young. I think it was the late 80s, 90s kind of time, if I remember rightly, maybe a little bit later than that even.
Might have been later. Yeah.
But, you know, we look back and had we read that book at that time, our life would have been different, but maybe it wouldn't, because we have to go through the journey we live, have the experiences that we've had for that light bulb moment of the engagement of the mindset with the knowledge to take the action in a, directed, meaningful and intentional manner to create the results that we're looking for.
True. It's true. And that's why I think that's such a critical component, the mindset piece, because
Yeah.
I know lots of people that have very advanced degrees, multiple advanced degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not wealthy people. So it's
Yeah.
not that, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And we've seen plenty of people that have opportunities all around them. So it's not just that either.
And then people that come from money with money that lose it all or do nothing with it. And, really,
Yeah.
like we say, money is an exchange of energy. It really is just energy at a different level than we normally think of. And that exchange can come so freely without those, those resistances and the obstructions to money. And yeah. So going through, you went to law school. Had you done any sort of entrepreneurial stuff, even if it was a lemonade stand or any of that kind of stuff when you were younger that kind of gave you some sort of perspective? I did a paper round when I was about 12 or 13. So I delivered newspapers, got up at 5:30 in the morning, rode a bike down the road, got a pile of newspapers, put them in order, got out and delivered them, put them through mailboxes. We can't just throw them on the driveway in the UK. Did you do anything that kind of, caused you to generate money in that kind of transactional situation earlier on?
I did earn my own money early. I babysat at a very young age, earlier than was responsible to let me babysit.
Yeah.
I can't believe that the adults in my life let me take care of other children when I was that young. So I babysat any free time I had. And I got paid. It started off with literally $1 an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
as a young girl. And then the other thing that I did, is we would make these, for whatever reason, the kids in our class, they would like to chew on these cinnamon toothpicks. Have you heard of this?
I don't think I have. No.
It's terrible.
Have these
Everybody loves it. But it's basically, it's just toothpicks, soaked in cinnamon oil.
Right.
And then chew on it like the what's that
Chewing
canned
tobacco.
Red Hot? Yeah, but it tasted like that's Red
Yeah.
Hot, you know.
Mm.
And I got some of the oil with my babysitting money and some toothpicks, $3 or whatever, and I would sell the toothpicks for 25 cents a piece.
Yeah.
That's cool. I got shut down. We weren't allowed to have those at school, so I did get shut down. It didn't make a lot of money. And then of course we made bracelets, friendship bracelets, and
Yeah.
kinds of things. So yes, although I didn't realize that's even what it was. There was no
Yeah.
theme. It was just,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing. But, a lot of those things, they got shut down just by the mindset of the I think, well-meaning adults in my life.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, you need to be reasonable and you need to be realistic about what your future holds. And again, if you want to get out of here, you go to college, you go to law school or medical school if you're really smart, and that's how you get out of this. But
Yeah.
that was it. That was the only way you went. And I was like, well, I definitely want out of this.
Yeah.
No disrespect, but I wanted out of that.
Yeah.
And I thought I was gonna go to med school. I was pre-med for a year, and I thought, well, no, this isn't for me. So in my mind, the only other alternative was all right, I guess I'm going to law school then.
Mm. Yeah.
And it all worked out. And you're right. You have to go through your journey. And if I often think if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, what would I tell her? And there are a few things that I would tell her, but I'm not really sure she'd listen.
Yeah.
I'm hoping my daughter does. Just because she sees a better example, I think, of what you can do. Money is really just a resource, right? It buys you freedom. It's not about the money. It's about the freedom that you can buy with the money.
Yeah.
And so again, that's also a mindset shift. I'm not earning money to hoard money.
Yeah. The other thing as well is not just abundance, but when we look at finances overall, it just amplifies the people that we are. And again, that journey with mindset and the human being that we are, or the soul that evolves with the meat sack that we inhabit while we're here, that is really what matters through life, is who are we before we get money. And the fact that many people don't have money due to mindset and abundance issues or lack of, I think that really is the universe telling us that you're not ready for that money right now. And some people are hustlers, they're grinders, they go and make the money, like you said. Some don't hold on to it, but some keep it. I remember Carlos Reyes told me about the 4 S's at one of his conferences. He started out in survival, and then he gained some success. And then the 3rd S was status. He then wanted to show off that he was wealthy or rich. And then he became aware that he needed to provide some significance to the world. And I think once we understand the process, some need to go through more things in the survival to get to the success. Some people need more success to get to the status, and some people kind of bypass the status in some ways. Some people lag a long way in the status, but we can look at people like not Kiefer Sutherland, Keanu Reeves. Really, he gives away most of his money that he earns and does so much good that, he takes the subway train. Not that taking the subway train makes him the best human being on the planet, but there's that level of humanity about him, and the fact that it's not important for him to be, and nothing's wrong with Tom Cruise, but just the contrast of the lives that they live. Tom gives a lot of money. That's not what the topic of this is really about, but it's the fact that he just lives. And he sees the good in people, and he's not he's not so public about it. There's a lot of people that give a lot of money and do so much good with their money. It may happen to be a tax write-off. Who cares? They're willing to do it. Some people do it because it's a tax write-off. Some people do it because they care, and it happens to be a tax write-off that benefits them. And I think that when we look at mindset around money, that's that abundance really out there clearly. You must have come across a lot of people with great contrasts in those 2 extremes.
I have, and I got to tell you, motivation, I think, does matter, right? I think it matters because, again, that's your mindset, right? So is this a sustainable thing or not? So I think going at charity or giving back only because it's a tax write-off, fine, thank you. That's, we still need we still need the money, but it's like you said earlier, it's an energy exchange, and that's just not the best
Yep.
energy to
Yeah.
have attached to a resource that could provide so much good,
Yeah.
right? I'm all for it being a tax write-off. I think that's good energy. Let's
Mm.
incentivize good things. I totally understand why that
Yeah.
is. But I do think the motivation in some ways does matter.
Yeah.
I used to not think that. I used to think, well, who cares? Just give it to charity. I don't really care why. I do care why, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about that idea with the funds to create like find an alignment of investors to create a fund to, give back and kind of amplify their energy in that way. But there's so many great opportunities out there. But I wonder what it is in people that, and it's generally people that come from a lack background that tend to turn around and have that more generous, that bigger heart, as we would say, or, the bigger, more abundant mindset than necessarily some people that grow up, but I guess it can't be that different as far as there are just going to be people that have their karma, their experience that they're born with and they grow up with and around, and it just amplifies. But I guess it's the people that we spend time with that really amplifies what we can become. And we talked about masterminds with several of the guests. It's so important to level up, be the, in some cases, the educational side is the dumbest person in the room, but also be a sponge and absorb what's around you. Put your hand to lift up people to at your level, and also, have hands come down to you to raise you to somebody else's level. And we can talk about mindset and money, but it's not just about the mindset and money. It's really being vulnerable, understanding maybe the mechanics of the universe are not really a rule set that we can document, but it's got to feel so good to be part of something that is so beneficial and so, giving, in the sense that we contribute to ourselves to a level that we can better contribute to others. Like you said a little earlier on, unless we're good within ourselves, we can't give more on the outside. It's setting that foundation of self-love, the self-care, and enabling us to really share the essence of who we are and what's around us with everyone else. And it all rubs off. A smile in the street could save somebody's life, arguably. Somebody's having a shit day, the worst shit day of their shit month and their shit year and their shit life as they see in their mind. That smile could be that ray of hope. Hey, is everything okay? You may not be able to solve the problem, but the fact that you cared for somebody, and that could be in a financial sense, it could be in any sense whatsoever, but the ripples that we can create can be, impact things so far outside of our awareness. I know we're getting a little bit off the topic of the normal podcast, but I love it because it makes each and everyone different. But tell me about your background with spirituality and how that's obviously been a cause of a shift in your relationship with money and people and other things, because that's really how we had a huge conversation a few months ago. This is so important to these conversations too.
Yeah, I think it is. And my journey has been, all over the place. Some of it maybe not popular, but that's okay. Um, I grew up not with no religion really at all. My parents were teen parents, just really and still in that S stage, trying to survive that first S, right? And I think they were doing the best they could. So, there's no resentment there at all. But there was no they avoided the church. Well, I mean, teenage pregnancy is really frowned upon in most churches, right?
Yeah.
So my father actually had been in the Mormon church, Latter-day Saints, and then my mother was Methodist. And basically when they got pregnant with me, I'm the oldest, they got pregnant with me. My mom's parents kind of dropped her off at my dad's parents' door and said, figure this out, And so I think my grandparents on that side, they tried to keep my dad in the Mormon church, and he just kind of ran at the time.
Mm.
And so growing up, I didn't even know that actually until I was an adult, that our family was in a Mormon church at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up with it, right? I wasn't really that close with my grandparents when I was young. I wasn't around it at all. They moved away. A lot of my friends growing up were Catholic, and so I would visit Catholic church with them, and it just wasn't a fit for me. But I was trying to figure it out, right? Because there's a lot of guilt around religion when you're young and you don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. I just have to figure out which religion, because it wasn't an option to not have a religion. I just was like, I don't know, I have to figure out which one, because I feel like God knows I'm phoning it in right now. So I got to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear and angst around it. And I never really found my groove. And then I went away to college and I'm like, I don't think I believe in any of this, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I went through that. I think a lot of people, when they go to college, they do that, right? Like, I don't think I believe in any of this. And then I kind of swung back around as an adult, that what I believe is in universal energy, right? And I don't really care what people call it. I don't care about the dogma, and I don't care about the rules necessarily, because I aim to be a good person because I want to put good into the world, not because there's some consequence if I don't. And I'm not saying that religious people only do it because they want to not go to hell. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying that none of it made sense to me for my life personally until I kind of shifted into, I believe that I just need to put good energy out there, and good energy comes back.
Yeah.
It's just how it works. So, it's going to sound maybe trite, but I would say I'm spiritual, not religious. And once I found that, and it wasn't until I found that I really started to see success, though. So I will say, those years when I'm like, nope, I'm an atheist. That's it. I don't have any religion. I don't buy any, but I believe in science and the things that people say. Of course I believe in science, but it wasn't until I started to connect to whatever you want to call it, higher self, universe, God, spirit. I don't care what you call it. To me, it doesn't matter what you call it. It wasn't until I could start to connect to that, to where I could kind of see beyond myself, where I really started to see success.
Yeah.
Coincidence? I don't know, maybe, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to it.
Yeah. I think that's amazing, because I could probably look it up. It was a Sunday. It was my birthday. My parents came into my room and said, "Oh, it's time to go to church." And I said, I don't believe in this. I don't want to go. And they said, "Oh, okay," and went to church. I had no idea that was going to be the response. They weren't angry people that I was in fear of telling them, but it was just like, I realized, no, I can stand up for myself and just say, I don't feel this. So I very much went on an atheist path for many years, probably up until about 2007, 2008. I was, show me it was science and I'll believe it. Very much logical, black, white kind of thing. And when I was in 2008, I met a couple of people, Susan and Graham, and we did some energy work. And I didn't really separate the energy work from religion or universe, all that kind of stuff. But I'd always been aware from that point that I could separate spirituality from religion. I realized that there was a difference between the dogma of historical religion, how many millions of lives have been lost in the name of a God, which is always the right God, not the wrong one. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same on the other side. And all that happened in the name of, rather than just saying, hey, everything's energy. And I've really dove much further into that the last 3 years of Matthew, is, we don't need to give it a name necessarily. Like you said, it could be related to as God even, or universe, or energy, however we want to put that. But just letting go of labels is so powerful. Not having to compartmentalize and categorize something into something which has dogma behind it. We can just relate it to it freely in the way that we want to, and that can evolve day by day, minute by minute, year by year, and it doesn't have to be a fixed thing. And that relates back to attitudes towards friendships, money, people. Everything in life is so flexible, and we can choose anything in life to be important or a priority. And we can also let go of what other people think is a priority and realize that just because an illogical rule of something says we should subscribe to a particular perspective, we can let go of that and say, take my perspective away. I want to give it away. Help me change my mind, and be so open that we can allow our position to be shifted, but it doesn't have to change. And it's not that we're trying to have them persuade us, but it's just that openness to be accepting of whatever is. Doesn't mean you're condoning it or condemning it, but it can just be that free-flowing experience of life, and just understand that if we look for that most cherished experience we want in life, we can kind of experience most of that right now if we just take that essence. I'd love to own an Aston Martin. I think you'd love to own an Aston Martin too, but you could go and rent one for the day. And we get that feeling of the power, the smell of the leather, the British engineer and whatever it is that's relatable to that. And that can lead into building that manifestation, that energy that drives us towards, hey, through my love of life and people and bringing value to myself and exchanging energy with others, this is now a little bit closer to maybe happening or better. I think it's so valuable to just be so vulnerable with these things. And coming back to the money thing, I was talking to somebody last year and they were talking about they'd gone through the Dave Ramsey course with money, that they would be debt free. And, I've got different opinions on Dave Ramsey's program. I think it's definitely a great fit for a lot of people in certain perspectives, but obviously it's very restrictive if you take that in the long term. Yet the irony of Dave Ramsey offering a payment plan for his course is the deepest irony. But the fact that, you can look at these things and just know that where you sit now can completely change in a short period of time with intention. The perspective that you can be debt-free within a period of time and be intentional about doing that, but then use that as a springboard to move forward from a fresh restart. And we can have a restart every moment of the day with something, whether it's a mindset, whether it's something. But yeah, it's just amazing to think from. Tell me about your first property that you bought, Bethany.
Well, so I started off as a passive investor. I bought a condo, right? My property
Right.
to live in, which of course you look back to the purple book, and that was not an asset, that was liability, because it was not making me money. I was just living in it.
So, but the accomplishment of doing that, saving up the down payment, or however you came up with the down payment, that mindset of, wow, $20,000 or $40,000 or $80,000 for the down payment. How much of an accomplishment was that for you?
It was huge, because not a lot of money in my family. And so the sentiment, I came from Ohio, and the sentiment when I first moved here was, I'm sorry, your rent is how much? When I first moved and I was in law school. And at the time it was $525 was my first place. I split it with, $525 was my half.
Yeah.
Right. Of a 2-bedroom apartment. And that could have been a mortgage on a pretty decent house. Right. But it's funny how our perception of money and what's enough shifts as we do. So I come out here and I'm like, well, it costs $520, so I can afford $520 because that's where I'm going to live.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas had I stayed in Ohio, like everybody else who stayed in Ohio, it was like $525. I could never afford that. I pay $400,000 and I own this little tiny house. Right. So it shifts, I think, as you do that. So you kind of ratchet up a little, and so I did it very slowly. I'll admit it was a long process for me. I was slow to get there, mostly because of mindset, right? And but it was a huge accomplishment to buy a condo. I didn't think, of course, and back then it was what, 2002, maybe 2001, 2002. We thought, we're buying at the top of the market. Right? So like now you look at it and you're like, wow, it's like tripled already.
Yeah.
For a condo in Southern California. But it was a huge accomplishment. But it still took me some time, even after reading the Purple Book and even after being a high income earner, it took me some time to still figure out the whole passive income game. Right. I was still toiling away. It was my badge of honor to work harder than anybody. Like that made me somehow a better person. I am better because I'm the first one in and the last one out. I build the most hours, and look how hard I work, and I never do anything, and I have no days off, and I'm tired all the time, and I drink a lot of coffee, and I don't eat, and all the things. Like, by the way, that sounds miserable, doesn't it? Why would anybody choose to have that be their existence? And yet I did.
Tell me about that self-love thing at that point.
Yeah, it wasn't there. It
Right.
was a thing, and then it became like I almost felt guilty for taking more than half a day off because then I couldn't say those.
Right.
I couldn't take a vacation because then I'll have had a vacation, and then I wouldn't have been the hardest worker.
Mm.
So it was a big mindset shift to get to the point where what I wanted was for people to go, God, she's so successful and she makes it look so easy. She's so
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
That's who I want to be. Not, oh my God, I don't even want that. Whatever level of wealth she has, she can keep because she's tired all the freaking
Yeah.
time. She's a grouch.
Yeah.
I don't want that. And I didn't want to teach that to my daughter. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everything shifts. And everyone has their own shift. For me, it was my kid. I'm not saying you have to have a kid in order to have the shift. That's
Mm.
not what I'm suggesting. For me, though, that was my shift
Yeah.
because wow, someone's watching me, right? And she's looking to me, and it's my job to make sure that she thrives, right? Not just survives. And if she's looking at me where all I do is work and work and work, and I'm not even particularly that happy, and I don't really, frankly, have enough money to justify how hard I'm working.
Yeah.
Can't teach that to her.
Yeah.
And so that really was a big wake up call for me, and it took me a while. I mean, she was still already here for a while when I finally figured it out, and so I really started doing some work on myself. And I will tell you, I joined a mastermind. Susan, you've met Susan.
Yeah.
Hence, I did not start off in Ascension because I was not ready for Ascension. Ascension, you have to like grow to. So I started off with, it was the one below Mindset Mastery. It was like basically the one where like get your shit together, get out of your
Yeah.
own way, and then come talk to me, right? So I did that first one where it was just like, maybe don't just show up to the Zoom, slide in sideways, like, do you know how important I am? I can't believe I'm here, kind of thing. Because that's
Mm.
what I did.
Yeah.
I would leave the Zoom to take an important phone call at 7:30 at night.
Mm.
7:30 at night West Coast when it was 10:30 wherever they were calling me from. Like it was not that important.
Mm.
And I would show up to that like almost a little self-important, honestly. Like who the hell did I think I was, right? And it wasn't until I got through that and finally I was like, this is my time. This is my me time. I paid a lot of money for it. It was the most money I'd ever paid on something for myself ever.
Yeah.
And, I started to really treat that as like, it was like going to the gym. I need to do it and you need to do it consistently. And now I finally kind of elevated or ascended to go to Ascension. And now Ascension, that mastermind is really about, it is about wealth consciousness. It is about creating wealth, through embracing your consciousness or your spirituality or whatever it is you want to call it because of the pillars, right? Because you can't just chase money. So it's not a coaching program. There are plenty of really awesome, amazing coaching programs to learn how to do certain things. Real estate's one of them.
Mm.
It's not that. It's about my relationship with money for me and
Yeah.
my relationship with myself and my relationship with whatever there is besides myself that connects me to everybody else. And I think that's really what was attractive to me is it's not about, oh, I'm connecting to God or I found religion or, it wasn't that. It was, I want to connect to something that connects me to you.
Yeah.
I want to connect to something that connects me to other people.
Mm.
Right. And I mean, probably no shock that a lot of my big revelations came during COVID.
Yeah.
Actually, when I couldn't be around people.
Yeah.
And I was missing it. So,
Mm.
So it's kind of it's been a weird journey kind of all over the place, but the relationship to money is a tough one it's almost like an abusive relationship if you look at it that way. And so it takes a lot of work to overcome the trauma of that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because back in 2008, 2009, I sort of became energy aware. I felt energy moving around me and, I did some past life regression. I did some sort of deep altered states and stuff as well. And then moved back to the UK. But I kind of I felt there was some sort of relationship with universe in some way at that point. But then went through a divorce and that kind of stuff, and that kind of separated. It wasn't that it wasn't important. I still work with Susan and have done, not terribly much the last few years. Her health is ailing a little bit, but I've been more aware in the last couple of years or last 18 months really that I did lose that kind of connection or whatever it was that I felt at the time. And it's really regaining it with yourself, which is that connection. Like Susan created in that diagram, that session that we had with her. It all leads up to the connection to the universe, and you are that connection to the universe between your purpose and the goals and those actions to get there. And I just love these conversations. I love being in the communities and love being around people where it's just different perspectives on similar things. And it's not that somebody else's experience is going to enlighten you, but it's maybe a hint towards something that you may have touched on or may touch on in the future that you remember later on down the road. That's just a gift that you look back on. Same way somebody may have, had a negative experience with money, but later in life they realize, wow, I look back now and I think what that meant to me at the time, now I get it, and now I can apply it in this new situation.
The reason why I like group masterminds, I do the one-on-one work because there's some really good insights one-on-one. But the reason that I really love groups is you do get the benefit of other people's wisdom. If you've ever heard me and you hear me say other people's everything, right?
Yeah.
You get the benefit of other people's wisdom and mistakes, right? We try not to dwell on the negative stuff and the mistakes in that particular mastermind, but it's in my mind, I'm still that science girl, right? I'm still the science background. It's evident. I see someone else who's achieved something that maybe I haven't yet, or something different than I've achieved. And I just am like, it's evidence. And once you start to see evidence in the world of the thing that you want, your brain will find it for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love it. I love it with other people because it's a shortcut almost.
Yeah.
I see something you've achieved and now my brain just goes, well, he's already done it. So I don't have to figure that part out. I know it's there.
Yeah.
So now I can find it. If you, one analogy that Susan always gives is, if I tell you next week to go out and look for blue cars, you're going to see a shit ton more blue cars than you ever even thought existed because you're looking for them.
Confirmation bias, isn't it?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's why I love surrounding myself with other people who have done the things that I really respect or I want to do, or or even that I don't want to do but need done.
Yeah. And I think that there's something very true with confirmation bias, and we can look into manifestation with that. We're always manifesting everything, and we're getting everything, that the essence of everything we're manifesting, but we don't realize we're manifesting it because it's thoughts, it's mindset, it's perspectives. And when we're more intentional about looking for the gift you said you don't dwell on the negative situations, but there's always a gift in there. And that's what the essence of their sharing of that negative experience is. What was the gift inside? I give the analogy of taking like a Milky Way bar. You pick it up off the shelf and you just go to eat it, but there's a wrapper around it and that tastes like crap. That's the negative experience. But once you peel back the wrapper, then you can find the gift inside. That's when you look for the gift in the situation that was the negative, that is now, you got destruction is the first, the flip side of creation. A breakdown is the beginning of a breakthrough. And if we look at life like that and all of our situations, we share it in that kind of way, that's where the thriving comes and the abundance,
I love it. And I love having these conversations with you too. It's, usually when I come on these things, it's like, tell me about securities line.
Oh, well, I to ask you about that. I'm kidding.
Is this talking about relationships with money, right?
Yeah.
I know I love it because people look at me and like, wait, you're a lawyer and you're talking about conscious wealth, or you're talking about spirituality, or you're talking about anything besides, the law. And the truth is that the law has been a great tool. It's been a great tool for me to create, and start to build the empire that I want. I'm still building it. But it wasn't until I embraced all the rest of this stuff, woo-woo, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. It wasn't until I embraced all that I was able to actually really use this tool for what it is.
Yeah.
And all the value that it can provide. Again, I guess, what did I think? The best thing I could ever get was a nice salary. And then, everyone thinks that lawyers are rich, and not necessarily, because again, I could, even if I brought home $5 million a year in a salary, if I don't keep any of that, or I blow it on something else, or I'm miserable, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason I reached back to your condo, you've recently bought a hotel.
Yeah.
What was your experience? Did your parents own a house, for example? Did you buy a house before them, or was their experience of buying a house is different from yours? What I'm leading to is now your daughter just saw you buy a hotel in Belize in a different country and raise quite a substantial fund of money, but also collaborating with people.
Yeah.
And that's the whole different thing where we grow up thinking we're on our own. School teachers just don't read the other person's thing. Don't ask them for help. We never work together because we're divided at that point. But if we were to collaborate on those things and know that, oh, Bob's great at maths and I'm great at physics or whatever it is, or the different tools that we can collaborate on, how different would we be as human beings? So when we grow up, we find that cheat code of the raising consciousness community, the energy and collaborating and bringing things together and bringing people and souls together. Your daughter's now seen you buy a hotel with 3, 4, 5 other friends. How do you think that's impacting her aspirations of what's possible? Not to say she needs to do that, but now she's got a different vision of that those lenses that you grow up with have disappeared for her. Now she's got a mum that's a super mum and doing incredible things.
Which is meaningful to me only if she sees me happy as well. But I'll tell you, I was talking to somebody about this recently, and my parents, they did buy a house, although it's the relationship with money has just been tenuous at best with my original family. But what I'm most excited about is, yes, my daughter's set point is going to be different than my set point, and it's evidence. That's all it is evidence.
Yeah.
I actually, what I had said to my friend is, when she looks at me, I do these things because I know she's watching, but not so she'll go, "Oh my God, my mom's such a badass," right? I actually don't want that. I want her to look at me and go, "Well, that's what women do. It's what they do. They meet the people around them and they figure out really cool things they want to do." I didn't go buy the hotel because I wanted to own a hotel. I bought the hotel because I wanted to own a place where I could have awesome retreats.
Yeah.
And I found other people were like, me too. So we did it together. That's really how that came about. It wasn't like, oh, I need to own a hotel. I mean, the place is amazing and I'm really excited, but I want to have a retreat there is what I really want. So, I mean, this other people thing, I've written an entire book called The Power of Other People's Everything. Not next year. And that was the revelation of, I don't have to do it myself. Because I grew up, same thing is actually, there is a line in the book that was like, eyes on your own paper. Growing up, eyes on your own paper. You copy off people. You don't, you do it yourself. I remember at a very young age, my dad, I had asked him for help with homework. And I was, I don't know, maybe 4th grade, something, 3rd grade, I don't know, 8 or 9, something like that. And I asked him for help with my homework. And he said to me, "You're a smart girl, figure it out." And at the time, I remember thinking, he thinks that's a compliment. He did. He thought it was a compliment. It was part of it was probably he didn't know the answer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, he was a teenager himself.
Yeah.
So, but in my mind, I thought, all right, I just have to figure stuff out myself. Because the one guy that's supposed to be the guy taking care of me, he just told me I have to figure it out myself. He's not going to help.
Yeah.
Right? Well-meaning. But what I took from that is I have to do everything myself. And so I did. I never asked for help with my homework again, ever, from anyone.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing, these decisive moments in life? I did Landmark a few years ago, and they say there's like 2 or 3 events in life that define how your beingness is for the rest of your life and how you respond to situations. And clearly, I'm feeling as well as hearing that was one of those decisive moments for you.
Yeah, it was. And there were a few of them. They're in the book, and that one is too. And it does really frame how you approach all of your tasks. Right? If you think you have to do everything yourself, then you're going to approach things differently than you think, oh, I have all these resources around me, money being one, people being another, 2 of the biggest resources, that you could possibly have. And if you don't think that those are there for you, life is a lot harder than it needs to be, really. And you don't get as far, I think. I think that's not true. You can get as far. It just will take you a lot longer.
Yeah.
Right? It'll be a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of that you get to use money as a resource, and even, I don't want to say use people, but yes, use people as a resource, as though as same as they can use me as a resource. Right?
It's a leveraging. I mean, some relationships are transformational, some are transactional. I live in the world of finding as many transformational, but there is a need for transactional relationships too.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be that tool for somebody else in their game.
Yeah.
You know? So that's what I want to teach my daughter.
Yeah.
What I want her to take out of this is, it's not money for money's sake. I'm definitely not at that status phase, right, where I need people to see that I've made money, or even look at me, I own a hotel. It's not that. It's, I want her to know that whatever it is she decides to create, she has everything she needs within her or around her to create whatever it is she wants.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a hotel. It wasn't even a hotel for me either. You know, I don't know what it is for her yet. She's 15. She probably doesn't know either. You know?
And at the end of the day, I mean, Monopoly's a game, but life's a game as well. And it's, you know, again, coming back to experiences and having fun, enjoying what we're doing with other people. And yeah, we can build hotels, we can convert some houses to hotels or multifamily, whatever it is that we're doing, but it's just moving pieces around and just changing the perspective and the mindset where you are on the board in life, and just enjoying that with other people, playing games in different places at the same time. It's like the chess player that can play 12 games of chess at the same time. It's not to beat somebody else, but it's the experience of interacting and staying on the ball with those different things. And maybe it is somebody moving the piece for you, you know, knight 3 to whatever it is, and they move it for you. And it's just moving pieces around and having people in the right place where we're all benefiting each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that analogy of a game, because it should be play. You know, I mean, again, what are we doing if it's just miserable? I cannot believe that whatever put us here, whatever you believe put us here, that it put us here to just struggle and strife and then die. That cannot be why.
Yeah.
You know, and yet our brains, though, down to their very core, operate for survival. Our brains aren't wired for happy. That's not what they're there for.
Really, yeah.
From dying. You run if you're being chased, you eat if you're going to starve. It's for survival. So we have to actually work and train in it to learn how to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a choice.
Meaning, right? I think that's the meaning of life, is that you get to do that, though. You get all of this, it's ours to train however we want it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as you move through life, you've made some investments. Obviously, you bought into a hotel. You're pretty passive in the investments that you have. Where do you see yourself, or where are you now in the investments, as far as, you know, maybe a diversification of assets, and where do you see that evolving in the future, as far as being more passive, or maybe active in a smaller area but more meaningful area where you can impact more? And what do you see coming through in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
My favorite investments are real estate investments. So I'm in self-storage.
Yeah.
I'm in mobile home parks.
Yeah.
And obviously boutique hotels, where I'm active. I'm not passive in a boutique hotel. That's my active one. And I'm in mixed use commercial. So those are my passive asset classes. Believe it or not, I'm actually not yet in multifamily. I will eventually be in multifamily. That's one of my next ones. I just wanted to get this active deal I built first. However, I'm not done with the active deals. The plan there is actually to sell this hotel to a fund that we launch in about 2 years, to buy more like this, to have more properties, to have more events. Where and my passion for these events is to help people create conscious wealth through scaling their business, whether it's passive investors or active investors. I want to help people build up those pillars, right? So they can create the conscious wealth that they want, that buys them the freedom, that gives them happiness. So that's my goal. So when I do the fund, it's going to be, you know, let's buy a castle in Texas that Britt will live in, and let's buy a place overlooking the ocean in Malibu that I'll live in, and we'll host events there, and we'll kind of trade. And again, it's just a research. I want to treat it like the flow that I think it is, right? The energy that it is. So that's why I don't have a negative relationship to money any longer is that I recognize that money flows to me, it flows away from me, it flows to me, it flows away from me. And the minute that I start to grab or get angsty around that is the minute that it cuts off.
Yeah.
And so I want this fund to be a way for money to flow, but also for ideas to flow, for relationships to flow, for energy to flow. And so there'll be a lot more active investments for me. Because I mean, I'll still practice law because I love helping people create, safely build their empire, really, and create conscious wealth. So I'll stay doing that, but I can do that from anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My daughter graduates high school, and she's a junior right now. So next year she'll graduate high school, and then I'm like, it's me and my dog, So we can go anywhere, and we'll go to Belize for a while, and then maybe Malibu for a while, maybe Texas for a while. Who knows? I keep teasing Brittany because she had posted something about a castle in Texas. I'm like, let's buy you a castle.
Yeah. Well, there's some castles in the UK that she could buy in magical areas with lots of energy and great places.
That is a dream. Well, I know, we talked about doing some fun properties together too.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want to be able to do fun projects with people that I like and want to be around, and that's it. I just want to share energy like that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap?
I mean, be on the lookout for the power of OPE, Other People's Everything, next year.
Yeah.
And, I plan to be putting a lot more of this kind of content out on my Instagram page.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing a really cool series about how to buy a boutique hotel on my YouTube channel. So
brilliant.
But Instagram is the place where I play. So if you want to have some more content, that's the place to find me.
Fabulous. We'll put your contact information as far as your Instagram and your socials that you want to share, the website at the end. But thank you so much for this hour. It's been incredible. So much
fun. I love it. Yes. And hopefully I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, hopefully in a couple of weeks, a week and a half.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bethany. Have a wonderful day.
You. Bye-bye.
Check out the links below. Amazing updates on the Belize Hotel, the retreats that are going to follow, any SEC-related matters. Follow the links to Premier Law Group, where she practices as a managing partner, and just see what's out there. The spiritual world is incredible. It definitely overlaps with business, and business wouldn't be the same without it. Look for the peace, the purpose, and the prosperity in your life. Thanks, and see you on the next edition of Birth to Net Worth.